What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Tribe of Runners. I'm your host, Liz Myers, and today I have a very special guest on the podcast, someone who I've personally known for quite some time now. I've been harassing her for day in and day out for, I think, over a year, and very fortunate to find you and make a connection. And you have been crushing ultras and running, I should say, for quite some time. And we're going to dive into all of that. You are a teacher. You're about to retire, which is a very touchy subject, but in the best way possible because you're so passionate about it. And I am very excited to chat all things running. So thank you, Kim, for being on the podcast.
You are welcome. And hearing you say, "What's up, everyone," is so weird because I hear it, I listen to your podcast. I'm like, oh, she's saying that to me. I'm right here and I'm on the podcast. So that was cool to hear the intro
Yeah.
because I've heard it, dozens and dozens of times. So, no, it's great to be here. I'm
Yeah.
super excited.
Heck yeah. And sadly, it's always the same. I've always thought about changing it up, and I'm like, every time I hop on the podcast, it's the first thing I say, like, what's up, everybody?
Yeah, it's
So,
your
yeah, you get the warm and welcome. Yeah, you get the warm welcome. And now we're going to chat all things running. So, Kim, it has been amazing watching you through this running career that I've known, but there's so much I don't know about you. So, when did you first get into running? How did it kind of start? And tell us all, like, what made you go into ultra running?
So my first foray into running would be junior high track. And we were told to go run through the streets near our junior high school. And I think I made it a couple blocks and I was like, this is not for me. And walked back to the school, and that was it for me. I didn't run another step. I didn't play any sports in high school. My friends were athletes, but I just couldn't be bothered. I was the kid under the bleachers drinking beer, smoking cigarettes. I was a slug. I did nothing in high school. And then, went away to college, started running a little bit in college, more as weight management type of thing. But I didn't really seriously start until about 1995. And it was a pretty typical progression of I ran 1 mile. Well, maybe I can run 2 miles. And then I ran 2 miles and run 3 miles. And it just kind of went on from there until I think I signed up for a few 5Ks, and did that. And then in 1996, my husband and I moved out to West Wendover, Nevada, where I've lived now for 30 years. And that's really where I started running. It's a small town in the middle of nowhere. We're 120 miles west of Salt Lake City, 120 miles east of Elko, Nevada. We literally are in the middle of nowhere. But what that means for me is I have hundreds of miles of dirt roads and trails to run on. So I was a trail runner before I even knew I was a trail runner, because that's all I ran,
Mm.
because that's all I had to run on. But all my races were on pavement. They were all road races.
What made you kind of obviously you were like forced to kind of start running on the trail because you lived in the area, but what made you sign up for all the road running? Like, did you not really know much about trail running at the time?
I knew nothing. This is back in 1996, so there wasn't this online social media presence of trail runners and all of that. So I had no idea trail running was a thing. And so my first I knew I wanted to keep pushing the distances, and so my first race was a half marathon, a road half marathon in 1996 called the Great Salt Lake Half Marathon. And I knew nothing about racing at all. And that race, though, taught me a lesson that I have carried with me for 30 years, that I taught my cross country runners when I coached cross country. So knowing nothing, and I am a very punctual person, my husband and I get to the race start, and I'm early because I like to be on time. And I figure, well, I'm one of the first people here, so I'm going to line up in the front because I was here first. So I figured out where the start was and I just stood right on the start line because I was there first. I just laugh thinking back at it now because I'm sure the people were looking at me like, "What are you doing up here?" But I held my spot, and the gun went off, and we were running, and we were running fast. Like, what is happening right now?
Oh
And I remember at one point ran by a building that had a bunch of windows, and I remember glancing over and just seeing me lost in this sea of legs. I mean, I'm 5 foot, and there's all these
yeah.
tall, lanky, and I had this just look of terror on my face. Like, what is happening? So finally, around mile 5, I totally gassed out, and I'm like, I cannot keep up with this pace. So then I settled in, into my little workhorse pace, as I call it, and finished the job. But yeah, that taught me a very important lesson about not
Yes.
lining up in the front and then, knowing your proper pace.
Yeah, that's a good lesson to learn right away, though. I hate to say it, but we've all done it, and some of us still do it. Like I've caught myself multiple times going out way too hot at the beginning. It's just the race excitement, but what a
Yeah,
lesson to learn. And then I
yeah.
assume you progressed, like you did a half marathon, marathon. How long was the progression from like half marathon up until you actually did your first ultra? I'm sorry.
My first ultra was in 2018.
Okay.
So it was quite, and my first ultra was a trail ultra because
Oh,
by
very cool.
then I figured out, found out about trails. So
Okay.
my first ultra was in 2018. My first road marathon was in 1996.
Oh,
And
okay, okay.
and so for years I just trained on trails, but all of my races were road races. And so for many years I was just content doing half marathons and marathons on the road. But one school year I created a club called the Hill Hussies. And it was a group of us ladies, and we would go out and do real hill repeats together every Wednesday. And it was during one of these hill hussy sessions that another teacher friend casually mentioned, it was towards the end of the school year, so in the spring, casually mentioned that over the summer she was going to do a triathlon. And
Mm.
immediately in my head, I'm like, a triathlon? Well, if she can do one, I could probably do one. So then I kind of went all in trying to learn about triathlons. I went into Salt Lake and I watched a triathlon just to see what it looked like, the transitions, and then spent the summer training in, I think that was 2011, spent the summer training for a sprint triathlon and did that. And then I was all in triathlon, and it was the same thing as running. I did a sprint triathlon, so now I got to do an Olympic triathlon. Did that, and then now I need to do a half Ironman, and I did 3 or 4 half Ironman, I think, 3 or 4 or 5. And then, of course, it was like, well, if I'm going to do a half Ironman, I bet I could do a full Ironman. So in 2015, so it took me about 4 years. And then in 2015, I did Ironman Coeur d'Alene,
Oh,
which,
wow. Very
yeah,
cool.
it was one of the hottest Ironmans on uh in recorded history. They almost canceled it because it was just so hot. Yeah, it was awful. The bike loop was 2 56-mile loops, and on the second loop, I head out and it was very mountainous terrain, and there you're kind of going through these mountains and there's all these trees, and at one point I look over and I just see bikes just ditched on the pavement. I'm like, what is happening? So many runners or so many bikers were getting off their bikes and then just going and sitting in the trees in the shade because it was just too hot.
Oh my
But
goodness.
I just kept going, and then because I'm a back of the packer, by the time I got to the last aid stations on the bike, all they had left was Gatorade that had orange Gatorade that had been sitting out in this 108-degree weather all day, so it was boiling hot. To this day, I can't even look at orange Gatorade. I will never drink it again. And then
Traumatized.
yeah, and then I got onto the run and, thankfully, people were outside hosing us down, and, the bad thing about that, though, is, the soles of my shoes that or not the soles, but um, the padding, the what is that called that goes in your shoe? The
The
last.
insoles or inserts?
Yeah, or the insole, yeah, the insole. Because my feet got so wet, the insoles bunched up underneath my feet, so I had to just pull them out and just run with no insoles at all. I finished with 10 minutes to spare. You had 17 hours, and I finished in, like, 16:50.
Oh my goodness. What a
I don't know
fight,
how
though.
I
I
did
can
it.
imagine. Oh, yeah. That sounds brutal. I mean, a full Ironman is insane,
Yeah.
and doing it with that type of heat is crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and the training for that, so because I live in such an isolated area, we do have a pool that's open in the summer, but
Mhm.
the half Ironman that I started training for, they were all like early spring, and our pool is only open during the summer. But 25 miles south from us is this little natural fed spring. It's called Blue Lake, and it's about a half mile perimeter, and it's natural fed, so it's always around like 60, 65 degrees, so the water is warm. So several
Mhm.
winters in a row, I would every Sunday I would put my wetsuit on halfway on, big boots, my big jacket. I would drive out to Blue Lake and I would,
Oh my
ditch the
goodness.
jacket, get in my wetsuit, and then scurry into the water. And I would swim laps around Blue Lake for, hours just to get the swim training in.
Oh my goodness. That is
Yeah,
some dedication. I was gonna ask that because I knew
yeah,
it was a small town, so I was like, "Did you guys
yeah.
have a pool? Like, how'd that work?" But, oh
No,
my
that was the
goodness.
only place to swim, and what's funny is Blue Lake is a destination, for people to get certified in scuba diving because it's so deep. So there would be
Mhm.
scuba divers out there, and so I would come walking, out, in my wetsuit, my swim cap, my goggles, and they'd be like, "Where's your tank?" I'm like, "Oh, no, no, I'm just here to swim." And so I would have to dodge them as they were coming up out of the water, and yeah, I look back on that now and I'm like, that was a lot of discipline to go out and do that. Every Sunday, I would go out and do that.
Oh my goodness, yeah. And the
Yeah.
discipline to be in the triathlon Ironman
Yeah.
world is way different. 3 different
Yeah.
sports. Yes, running is essentially easy, but biking and
Yeah.
swimming is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. Well, and biking too, I don't have a safe place to bike. So I did all of my bike training on my trainer. I have my bike here in my workout room. So I did
Yep.
all of my bike training was inside because I don't have a safe place to ride here.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially just well, like, I know here for me, like, it's not safe to ride on the road. I see people doing it all the
Yeah.
time. Like, we have bike
Yeah.
lanes and stuff, but, like, the
Yeah. No.
drivers,
Mm.
no.
Yeah, I'm too scared.
Yeah.
I put me on the bike trainer. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so crazy. And I knew you did some triathlons, but I didn't know you that the transition for it, which is so crazy to think about. So you spent
Yeah.
about 4 or 5 years in Ironman training,
Yep.
triathlon,
Yep. Yep.
and
And
then did
then
you
yeah.
kind of go into running? Is that how that looked?
Yeah, then I went back into running, and then it must have been after 2015, 2016 that, maybe I, got on the internet more and there was more, social media posts, about trail running, and all of a sudden I'm like, "Wait, what?" this is a thing. I've been running trails my whole life. I did not know that I could sign up and actually run on a trail. So then, of course, I
Mm,
was all in on that. And most of the trail running are ultra, that you see people talk
mhm.
about the 50Ks and that they're mostly trail. So those are the ones that I started learning about and seeing. So then, of course, it's like, well, okay, now I got to see if I can do a 50K. And
Yeah.
off I went and spent some time training. And I think my first 50K was Bryce Canyon in 2018. And then from
Okay,
there,
okay.
yeah, I've just continued on with the 50Ks, and I've done a 50 miler, and then the Javelina 100 just this past October.
Yeah. So when notice the trail running and you're like, "Oh my gosh, like I actually do this." Were you a little intimidated on going to quote unquote ultra running at that point? Or were you just kind of like all in, I'm gonna do it, it doesn't matter?
All in, just gonna do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, here's my next thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
no,
always
I was
wonder
all
if
in.
that's so cool. I always wonder if people struggle with that transition because I feel like majority of us as ultra runners, we did that like, half marathon, marathon, stayed in that season of life. And, eventually we see this trail ultra thing and then we dive in and we go 0 to 100 real fast.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yep, yep. I was all in. It was to me just like the next challenge to figure out, okay, can I do this too?
Hmm. Hmm.
But the
And
one the
then,
one the one thing that I did have to really learn the hard way is because I was always training on trails, and where I live, my elevation is 4,600 feet, but a lot of the trails I go to, I'm running above 5,000 to 6,000 feet consistently. And then all
Mhm.
of the half marathons and marathons that I was doing, and the triathlons, were always on road, and so I could always run faster on road. My race times were always, I mean, I've never been fast, but fast for me. And
Mhm.
so I always knew in my training, looking at my data, that my pace during my training runs, I would be able to run faster on the road just because it's easier to run on the road. You don't have the hazards and everything. When I switched to just doing trail runs, I had to really let go of any ego or any expectations of time, because then I
Mm.
realized I'm just going to be slower in these trail races. And yeah, I was getting older too. And that definitely factored in. Throughout my 40s, I really started to notice a slowdown in my times, and I've never really been competitive. I mean, maybe against myself, but there was definitely the sense of like, oh my God, I'm so slow. Like, why can't I run any faster than this? And, by the time I hit 47, 48, I was like, fuck it. I'm just out here moving. I don't care what my times are anymore. I just want to be out here
Yeah.
moving. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is such a crazy dynamic too to go, well, trail running is harder. It is very
Yeah.
common to have I hate to say a slower pace, but the pace that you're going to run is definitely slower than like what you would on road. Hands down, that's super
Yeah.
understandable. The logic makes all the sense. But
Yeah.
as you're getting older, it's hard to wrap your head around the fact that like you are getting older. You essentially aren't as fast or as quick or whatever the case may be as you were
Yeah.
in the past. And it is I can imagine it's just something hard to deal with. And especially you have ran all of your since outside of college and to have to balance that, what would you say was the hardest thing for you to do, like other than like letting the ego go?
Um, yeah, just embracing moving slower, and having to recover a little bit more, needing more time to recover, having to do a lot more mobility, that sort of thing. My whole running program now takes a little bit more time because I do go through a whole warm up and all of that. Um, so I just I think I have to be way more mindful now of every run that I'm doing, and just embracing that I'm a back of the packer, and that's where I'm gonna be now.
Yeah, and it is a huge adjustment. I mean, I can't speak to this because I'm not old. I am, middle aged, but I've noticed just from like the past 10 years, I have to do things a little differently. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I plan to do this as long as I possibly can. So the back of my
Right.
mind, I'm always thinking like I essentially want to do all the things I can now to make sure when I get older, I can withstand as much as possible. And
Yeah,
like mobility is one of them. You mentioned that, and we've kind
yeah.
of chatted about it before, but like having the mobility in you now, so when you're older, it kind of stays, and like just staying active,
Mhm.
is super,
Yeah,
super important. But doing all the things to just manage what you can at what age you are is super important. And I feel like I
yeah.
know I've like kind of put it on the back burner for a long time, like, oh, I'm fine. Like I'm in my 20s. I can still do this. And
Oh, yeah.
now I'm like, I'm so stupid.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it was in my 20s, 30s, and early 40s, it was just put on the shoes and go run. There
Mhm.
there was no pre anything. It was just put on my shoes and run. And like a lot of your listeners and probably yourself, I had to learn, especially with doing the Ironman help because there's a nutrition component. But getting
Mhm.
into the ultras, I had to learn about nutrition, and make sure that I was fueling for those long miles. And I had really bad runs where I bonked because I wasn't eating. And um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to learn. Um, and through all the 50Ks and the 50 miler and the 100, I've learned a lot over the years. And for me now, it's just about being out there and moving and fueling my body to
Yeah.
do it and keeping my body healthy. So, when I am into my 60s and 70s, I can still do it. I mean, we see them out there. This last 50K I just did, there was this old guy, he was 79 years old, and he kicked my butt at the end.
Awesome.
you know,
Yeah.
I mean, I want to be that guy
That's
someday.
incredible. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I feel like so many people say that. Like I've said it so much. Like I want to be doing this until I literally cannot anymore. And I'm hoping I'm like in my
hmm
80s. And
Yeah.
I don't need to be competitive. Like there just becomes a point where you do it for the love of the sport. And I feel like that's where you are in that aspect. Like you go out there and just we chat about this, and I knew I wanted to talk about it, so this is a good point. But you're just the most consistent and steady person when it comes to training, not only hitting all your runs consistently but also in races. And you've gotten comments, and people have told you multiple times like you're just so steady and so consistent.
Yeah.
And share with us like what that is for you and like why and how, because that's not always as easy as you make it look.
Yeah, I think I have the ability to just put my head down and grind. And I have pretty positive self-talk, and it's just okay as soon as my training run starts or as soon as a race starts, it's just put your head down and go to work. And I just move at a very steady pace. And this last 50K, plenty of people, went right by me when we started the climb. And within an hour or so, I had caught over half of them that were bent over their poles and huffing and puffing and breathing hard. And my breath was fine. And I just kept one foot in front of the other. I do a lot of counting in climbing,
Mhm.
like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or I'll count up to 20 and then I'll count up to 30. And I just put my head down and go. Yeah, I just put my head down and go. And I just don't waver from that pace. The aid stations, I'm one of those, I don't wanna waste time at an aid station, and sometimes I feel like, gosh, maybe I'm not being very social out here, and maybe I should sit and talk, and talk to some other runners and, chit chat, but I just wanna get in, get what I need, and go. Like, I just don't dilly-dally at all.
Yeah.
So and I think that's part of it is I just put my head down and I just work.
Yeah. Yeah. It is so easy to say. Like, I sit here and be like, yeah, oh my gosh, me too. But there's so many times I'm like, I do not. But it is one of the things that I think as a lot of ultra runners like always ask, like, well, like, what can I do to be better? I'm like, consistent. Like, if you can be consistent through the entire race, that's what really matters. And you mentioned
Yeah,
aid station transitions. Y Don't dilly-dally. Like, as much as you wanna sit and chat and, like, get to and
yeah,
be that is awesome, yes, maybe do it before the race and then after the race, but while you're running, like, get in there, get out, and you're
yeah,
super, super consistent, and it is a very good thing to have and to, have the confidence to say that you are super steady. It is
yeah,
a superpower, and I love the counting thing too. I know,
yeah,
I do something very, very similar. I think it's just a trick. It doesn't make the mind think. It just makes your mind think about the numbers, which is a huge
yeah,
distraction, and it's
yeah.
a good tool to have.
Which is funny for me to use numbers because I'm an English teacher. I hate math, but the counting for me, that has come in handy in almost every ultra I've done. Counting steps, it just keeps me
Mhm.
moving forward.
Oh, yeah, and it's like a simple thing that doesn't take too much energy,
Yep.
and it's repetitive and or, like, distracting where it's just enough to get
Mhm.
you off the negative thought or the
Yep.
spiral that you're going through to keep you going.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I use counting in every race.
Love it, love it. We've kind of talked about it, and it's something I want to talk about here. But you mentioned Javelin 100. Now, I know all about it, but our audience has no clue. So this was your first 100 miler.
Yep.
What brought you to Javelina? What made you want to go out there?
So, Javelina 100 is one of those races that when I first started learning about trail running and then ultra distances, Javelina 100 was one that I saw. And when I saw the pictures of it and read about it, I knew back in 2018, 2019, if I'm ever going to do a race, a 100-mile race, it's going to be that one. Just because of the vibe, and it's in October and Halloween, and just, the fire eaters and the juggle. I mean, just all of it. It's just such a massive party in the desert. It's also a looped course, which I kind of like the consistency of doing loops. So it just everything about it, I knew if I was ever going to do a 100 miler, that's the one I would do.
Very
So,
cool, very
and
cool.
then the
And
the the registration for it, if I remember correctly, it's like New Year's Eve or like January 1st, like 12:01 a.m. or something. And so when I was going to sign up for it, I literally set an alarm and got up and got on to ultra sign up, and I was like right there waiting for the clock to turn so I could sign up because it sells out really quickly. And when I
yeah,
got in, it was, and I'm sure a lot of people have, same reaction when they get into a big race. It's like, oh my God, I got in. But then, oh my God, I got in. But then, oh my God, I got in.
it's the thrill of I did it, I'm in, and then it's the realization of like, holy crap, I have to run 100 miles.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
what it was.
Oh my goodness. And that's so cool. And Javelina does sell out. Like if anyone is interested in this race, you have to go first thing. And I hate to say this, but majority of the time the website crashes and then it's a hot mess
Mhm.
trying to reload and get it
Yes.
going. So it is just getting bigger and bigger. And it's a great race. It was my first 100. I know it's your first 100.
You didn't like
Everyone
it
that's
though.
listening, I hated it. I mean, it was a great race. I did the same thing. I signed up. It looks like a blast. It's just all vibes. Halloween, yes, everything sounded great. I had really bad blister issues when I went out, so that's why it was a good race, but I had a bad experience, so
Yeah,
that's what really went down
yeah.
with it. Um, But tell us about you and out there, like what, if you think of Javelina for your race, like what story would you tell?
I mean, it's a story of loops, as you know.
Yep.
The first loop went by pretty well. The first loop is a little bit longer than the other four. And there's I think like an extra maybe 2.5, 3 miles on that first loop. And I'm glad that was the only time we had to do that section. And so loop one, you're excited, the adrenaline's going, woohoo, did loop one. Loop two was hot. And so I paid attention to all the advice of cooling. I had an ice bandana, I dunked my hat, and I knew I was just going to have to really be even more conservative than I usually am, just because it was going to be so hot. And I just made sure at every aid station I put ice in my bra, ice in my hat, my bandana. So loop two was solid, but it was hot. Loop three was the point where it's kind of like, all right, I'm getting a little over this. And I still have two more to go. But loop three and four went pretty well. The overnight loop was good because it cooled off. And when you're running at night, you just have your focus on what's in front of you. And for me, I love to run in the dark. Just because you can only focus on what you can see. And for me, it just makes the time go faster. So the overnight loop was good. The very last loop, loop 5 was rough. It was rough. I'm not someone who will ever entertain quitting a race, but I will do a lot of mental gymnastics to try to come up with a reason that I would have to be pulled from a race. And so, because it's in the Arizona desert, there's these jumping cactus. And at one point I was trying to tell myself, well, maybe I'll trip and fall into this cactus and they're going to have to pull me out, or, maybe I'll trip and I'll twist my ankle and I'll be medically pulled. And so I did go through all of the scenarios of how can I get out of this without quitting it myself. But I worked through all of that. But then what was ironic is about the second half of loop 5, I just happened to glance down at my hands, and my hands were like 3 times the size of how they are normally. And I freaked out. And then I was like, oh my God, they're going to medically pull me. They can't pull me when 10 minutes ago I was, trying to figure out a way to get medically pulled. And so all of a sudden, all my focus were on these hands. I mean, they looked like I was wearing gloves that somebody blew up. So the next aid station, I did go and stop at medical, and I just held up my hands and I said, what's happening? And they just said, you're running 100, not happy. And then they asked me, some medical questions. Was I still peeing? Can I still eat? And it was yes to everything. I felt fine. And they're just like, yeah, you're running 100 miles. It's hard. So I just kept going. And, it was a bit of a death march. I would say the last 10 miles, it was definitely just head down and just move, and just death march it in. And I finished, I was a golden hour finisher. I finished in, I think 29 hours and 20 minutes or so. So I was a front of the pack golden hour finisher. But yeah, I got it done. So
Yeah. And such an amazing story in the sense of like just consistency. Again, like you were super consistent the entire time. It is so funny the tricks we play. I've done it as well, where I'm in a race and I'm like, if I could just fall, trip here, and then you do it, or like, you have something happen where you're like, oh no, they can't pull me. I can't I can't get out of this. I need to finish. So it is
yeah.
it's funny what the mind does to you when you're out there. But going into this, I remember how excited you were for the first 100 and all of the, like it's your first 100. It means so much to you, to all of us. But what's one thing that you would tell someone that's going after their first 100?
I would tell them, don't believe the fear that your brain is telling you that you can't do it, because you can. If it is within your if it's within your ability, I guess, I would never suggest, like, here's how I think about 100s. Western States is, this amazing 100 miler that everybody wants to get into, and I get it. But looking at the course profile and the cutoff, I know that I would not be able to finish it just based on my pacing, my time. I just don't think I would be able to finish it. So for a first 100 miler, I would advise people really look at the course profile and the cutoff time, and an honest look at your abilities to see if it's reasonable. Because I mean, anybody can do it. If I can do a 100 miler, anybody can do a 100 miler. But it was a 100 miler I knew I could do within my abilities. And
Mhm.
I think some of the bigger races, it's like the pie in the sky dream. And I don't want to crush anybody's dreams, but you have to be realistic. If you
Yeah.
can't move fast enough on the terrain to finish, it's going to be a really frustrating experience. So for a first 100 miler, I would advise just really look at the profile. How much elevation gain is there? What's the cutoff? And be honest in your abilities. And you
Oh
can do
yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
and just
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
the training in, put the training in, the day in and day out training.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And nowadays I feel like the 100 is becoming like the new norm, which is insane to think about.
Yeah,
But what you said is so true. If you have the training and you can realistically look at yourself and know, like, I can, essentially run this for X amount of time, then you could more than likely run a 100 miler as long as it
yep.
fits within your needs, instead of going outside of something and then just hoping you can do it done. If you have the data and you've done the training, then you can definitely do it.
Yeah, totally, totally. And this, I guess my perspective is coming from years of experience where, some young gun, they might be able to sign up and, do a hard one their first time out. I mean, Desert Peak, I thought Desert Peak was really, really hard, and the Desert Peak 50K. And there were first time 50Kers, first time ultra runners
Hmm.
that did it, and they blew me out of the water. But they were 20, 25 years old. So
Hmm.
you got to know your abilities, I guess.
Yeah, and I will say Desert Peak was very hard. Is very hard, is very hard.
It is.
It's a birdie course, which, since we're on the topic, let's talk about Desert Peak. And you went out there, you say you didn't do well. You did amazing. You crushed this very hard, very technical, very mountainous 50K. But in the midst of this, what potentially happened? And then what was the outcome?
It's just my life, Liz. There's always something. About 4 or 5 miles into the 50K, I to this day I'm not sure what happened, but what I suspect happened is I was using my Lecky poles. And for those people that don't know, Lecky poles, you wear these little gloves, and then the gloves loop into the poles, and so your hands are attached to your poles. And I was on a downhill, kind of a technical section, and I think I was reaching in to get some nutrition, and I think I tripped myself on my pole. I don't think I actually tripped on a rock, which is what I usually do. I do think I tripped myself with my pole.
Okay.
And because I my hands were strapped into the pole, usually when I fall, I Superman it, like probably everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But because my hands were in my poles, when I fell chest first with my right arm underneath my body, and I landed on some rocks, and my knee got all cut up, my elbow, all of this. And so I kind of sat up and like, okay, what, am I okay? And I look at my knee and it's bleeding, and I look at my elbow, it's bleeding. And I, kind of move my hands. I'm like, ooh, that feels a little painful, but wow, what am I, what am I going to do? So I knew there was an aid station coming up. So I just gathered my wits. The two other gals I was running with, Felicia and Carrie, they didn't even know I fell. So I, got up and caught up to them at the aid station, and I come in and I'm all bloody. And they're like, what happened? I'm like, oh my God, I fell back there. Well, then I wanted one of the aid station people to take a picture of my bloody knee and everything to send to my husband. And I go to grab my phone, and my phone's gone. And I'm like, oh
No.
my God, my phone slipped out. And my phone was going to be my reward for, I think it was a 12.5 mile climb up to the summit. That was going to be my reward to listen to music once I got up to the Lemonade aid station, which was at the top of that Mount Lemon. And so I'm like, oh my God, my phone's gone. But in my life, I always have these, it'll be fine moments. So I'm like, it'll be fine. Somebody will find my phone. But I needed to let my husband know what happened, because obviously he was tracking me and my tracker would have stopped. So I borrowed a phone from one of the aid station volunteers, called him, and I'm like, I'm okay, but I've lost my phone. I just fell. And so he takes it all in stride because he's heard it all before. So get up, continue on. My wrist it's hurt. I mean, it's hurting, but it was kind of like, well, I'm not going to quit because I don't run with my hands, so I'll just keep going. So we got up to Mount Lemon, and I did get a couple Tylenol while I was up there. And then we just kept going and finished. By the time I finished, I, was really looking at my wrist, and it was pretty swollen and kind of starting to turn some colors. And I thought, well, I really strained it, because I could still move my fingers. But it hurt, but I'm like, well, whatever. I mean, it's par for the course. So anyway, so the next morning I fly home. But then the morning I get up, the Monday morning or Tuesday morning to go to school, my entire wrist, I mean, it was black and blue and swollen, but I could still kind of do this. So I'm like, I just sprained it. And Jerome, my husband, kept saying, well, does it hurt? And my students are asking me, what happened to your arm? Oh, I fell. I'll be fine. It'll be fine. Well, into the next week, so 10 days later, I finally decided, maybe I should get this fixed looked at, because if something is wrong and I don't fix it, it could become a big problem. And because we're so far out, I needed to go into Tooele, which is about 95 miles from us. So went into an orthopedic there and told the doctor the story, blah, blah, blah. She comes back in with my x-ray, and she sits down and she looks at me. She goes, now tell me what you did again. And well, I was running a 50K, 5 miles in, I fell and, finished the race. And it's just, she goes, girl, you broke it. I broke my wrist in two places. I broke the scaphoid and then another little one. So I actually had broken my wrist.
Oh my God.
And so she right away, she's like, we're going to have to cast you up today. I'm like, I need a cast? And then I remember calling you, and I'm like, oh, I've got a purple cast on.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I will never forget that. You called and I was like, you have a cast on? Like, what?
I couldn't
Oh
believe
my
it. I
goodness.
couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Honestly, either could I. And I will say, when I saw you finish and you showed me, I was like, oh my gosh, like it doesn't look good. You're like, but it doesn't hurt too bad. I'm like, okay, like the
Yeah.
adrenaline's probably still in. But the next
Yeah.
day, a couple days, you're like, it's sore, but I can still move it. I can still use
Yeah.
it. So I would have never known. It is crazy.
Yeah, me either. And from what the doctor explained, the tendons that move your fingers and your thumb are not connected to the wrist bone. So just because I could move my fingers really had no bearing on the fact that my wrist was actually broken.
I hate to say that, that does kind of make sense now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
still at the time, you just don't think about it.
Yeah, and I'm just kinda one of these, like, whatever," type of people, which sometimes is to my detriment, but overall things work out.
Yeah, oh my goodness. That whole story just is so funny to me. But it's such a real thing, and as someone who would have
Yep.
done exactly the same thing, like I think majority of us would have. We would have been like, I don't use my
Yeah,
arms. It's fine. Like just keep going, and push through.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
super, super cool. Crazy thing.
it didn't even occur to me to stop and say, "Well, I think I really hurt my wrist, I probably sh" it wasn't even a thought. It's like, "Ooh, that hurt. Okay, well, let's keep going." So
Yeah. And talking, I know this is something we want to talk about, but we're talking about crazy stories. You fall, don't realize you broke your wrist, but you also have like a very scary encounter that you did. I don't actually know this story. I told you to hold off and not tell me until we're on the podcast, but have encountered some wildlife. And just so
Mhm.
anyone like they don't know, obviously, but where you run, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. You've posted pictures. I see it and I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is so cool. But, I've never put one and two together that like you probably run into a lot of wildlife out there. So I'm going to stop talking. I want you to just kind of share this story and then I'll probably ask you a whole bunch of questions after.
Yeah, so because I am in an isolated area, I have all of these trails to myself. And over the 30 years that I've lived here, I've expanded and I will drive 20, 30 miles south, 20, 30 miles west, and I can get into just the most beautiful, beautiful areas of northeastern Nevada. It's just gorgeous, mountains and green, and it's amazing. And so over the course of all of these years of running, I mean, I will see rattlesnakes. I will see herds of antelope. I will see deer. I will see elk. I see little horny toads and lizards. I had a coyote kind of chasing us the other week when my dogs and I were out. So I see wildlife all the time, and I've never. I mean, seeing the rattlesnakes are a little bit scary. If people see them, they know what I'm talking about. When you hear that rattle, it is terrifying. But I have learned over time, when you hear the rattle, you stop, you identify where it is, and then you just go give it a wide berth and then go on your merry way.
Mhm.
So, I've never been scared necessarily, except for, maybe my dog's getting bit by a rattlesnake, but that thankfully has never happened either. And that's the other thing is that because I'm out on these trails by myself all the time, my dogs can run off leash 100% of the time. So
Mhm.
a friend and I was training for an ultra, and I wanted to get some hiking vert in. So I took this particular friend, her name is Daniela, took her on a hike with me, and she's one that's terrified of snakes. And I always give her a no snake guarantee, but we always end up seeing snakes. So I convinced her to go with me on this hike. So we're going, I'm leading, my dogs are, running around. At that time I had 4 dogs, and 2 little ones, two big ones. So we're hiking along talking, and I go to take a step, and I almost stepped square on top of a rattlesnake, which they usually will rattle because they give you warning. But this one did not. And so I almost stepped on it. And so I, screamed because it scared the heck out of me. Daniela turned tail and she just ran. My dogs kind of came and, were sniffing around, and, I got them out of there. And, Daniela's like, I am not going back that way. So I'm fine, fine, fine. So we turn around. So I'm back in the lead, and we start heading back the trail that we came up. And it kind of went into these rocks and brush. And we're just hiking along, 10 minutes after the rattlesnake incident. And then all of a sudden I hear this like growling and screaming and hissing off to my right. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And so I went running towards the sound, and I go running into the brush, and like 5 feet away from me, there's a mountain lion standing there with my dog Gus, who is a dachshund mix. So he's, small. Gus is hanging from the mouth of the mountain lion. And he's just looking at me like, help. And this mountain lion and I
Oh,
lock eyes. And I'm just like, yes. The mountain lion drops Gus because my other two big dogs at the time, Lola and Harley, they run in and they pounce on the mountain lion. Gus goes yipping down the trail. My two bigger dogs and my fourth dog, Molly, who is a teeny tiny dachshund, chase the mountain lion up into these rocks, and they get the mountain lion cornered on this little ledge where the mountain lion can't move to get to them, but the dogs can't get to it either. So they had it cornered. And so they were just up there, barking their heads off. Well, I'm like, I got to get a picture of this. So I pull out my phone. My hands are shaking and I'm
oh
taking
my
pictures.
goodness.
And yeah, I have these pictures of this mountain lion on this ledge and my two dogs, and Molly couldn't make it up the rocks. Um, and so I, call the dogs back. I'm freaked out. My poor friend Daniela, she's halfway down the trail back to the car. I find
Oh,
Gus.
no.
He had some puncture wounds on his head, but he seemed fine. So both of us, Daniela and I, are like, worst hike ever. We're packing it in. We're going home. So we left, kept an eye on Gus that day, and he seemed fine. The next morning, though, when I got up to let them out, he got some kind of infection, probably from the saliva, the bite in his head, and like his whole face had swelled up, and he couldn't walk in a straight line. So I had to rush Gus into the emergency vet in Salt Lake City, 120 miles away. Rush him into the emergency vet, and they were able to give him some antibiotics and stuff. And Gus is still around today.
Oh my goodness. That is
Yep.
crazy. Oh my goodness. I thought it was gonna be like, oh, I saw one and
No, no,
that
no, no. I saw my poor dog literally dangling out of the mouth of a mountain lion. I'll never forget that sight.
oh, I that has got to be like just scorned in the back of the brain right there. Like
Oh
you
my
just will
gosh.
never unsee that.
Yeah. It took me a few months to go back out. But knowing all of the places that I do go and run, I'm sure that there have been mountain lions that have been hidden that have seen me, but because I always have dogs with me, there's never been, an incident. I mean, I can't say
Yeah,
that
yeah.
for sure, but just knowing the places where I go, I'm sure there have been mountain lions, but they've just stayed away.
Yeah, so crazy. So my question for you is after that happened, or maybe before, like when you got into trail running, did you ever like look into like how to handle encountering a mountain lion out there or like,
I
yeah,
didn't.
that,
I didn't. I didn't. I honestly didn't. And I mean, this happened 3 years ago, or 3 or 4 Octobers ago. So I'd already been running out here on in all of these places for 20 years and had never seen one.
mm,
So
wow.
I mean, I just, to my fault, I suppose, just got too comfortable and thinking, I was
Yeah.
never going to run into one. But, I mean, I guess I know that they're out there, but I'm just so used to seeing deer and antelope and, Mustangs, wild Mustangs. That's always so much fun to see the wild Mustangs. Um, so I've never seen any that close. Like I was 5 feet away from it. That had never happened
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, that is so crazy. And what
Yeah.
about like Oh my goodness. I don't know what I would have done, to be 1,000,000% honest. Probably screamed just like you like screamed.
Yeah.
Cause like that weird panic of like, do you go help or like do I get something and then your dog's helping? Oh my goodness, that is so wild.
Oh, yeah, it was like, "Do I go to Gus? Do I call my other dogs that are chasing it? Like, what's
Yeah.
happening?" And, it was funny later that night,
Yeah.
I was wearing my, I had a Garmin at the time, so I was looking at my data, my heart rate data, and I was looking at the graph, and it's so funny because it's like, steady, 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 and then spike. Oh, that was the rattlesnake, and then steady,
Yeah.
steady, steady, huge spike. I'm like, "Oh, that was the mountain lion."
Oh my gosh. That is so funny. Technology, the joys of
Yeah,
that. But
yeah.
oh my, that is so crazy. So wow. You have wow, you got really lucky thinking about though, like 20 some years out there on trails and only that
Yeah,
one encounter. That's
yeah,
impressive,
that's
honestly.
that's it. There's been a couple coyotes, but they
Yeah.
mostly just make noise and kinda howl and bark, to, like, let us know,
Yeah.
like, "Get out of here," and so we'll just turn around and
Yeah.
go a different way.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. What a story. So before I
Yeah,
go, I do have a few questions and we'll more or less like just like you've been doing this for some time now. We've talked a lot like you've kind of chilled out in the sense of your paces have slowed down a bit. You have changed in that aspect, but from when you first started running to, what you have done now. You've run 100 miles, you've done tons of ultras, you've done tons of marathons, tons of half marathons, even gotten to triathlons. Like what's one of the biggest lessons you think you've learned through your fitness journey?
about myself,
Yes, about you. Like something
about
you've learned
me,
about yourself through Yep.
I have learned that I am damn tough. I have a grit to me that I never knew I had.
Mm.
In like I said at the beginning in high school, I was a slug. I mean, I did nothing, no physical, anything. And so through this, I really learned how strong I am mentally. Just I am just so gritty and so tough, and I never would have found that out about myself had I never
Yeah.
started any of this.
Yeah. And it's so crazy like what we do learn about ourselves through this because we put ourselves through some crazy things, not only with the training but the racing and just the obstacles we overcome. And the little bit of time that I've known you, like you are a gritty mf'er, like so
I
it's
am.
just consistent. Yeah. Yeah, you are a bad bitch, Kim, like hands
I
down. You are. I
I am.
and it's just so cool to actually like take a step back and really think about that too, because I think a lot of us get caught up in the comparison and just like what I could and should have done or whatever the case may be. But like you we don't always take the time to really think about what we are doing and all the good things that we've
Yeah.
done. And you've done some crazy things and you're going to continue to do some, which I'm super excited to see and be a part of.
What was really interesting, kind of on the
Oh,
same note, at, the beginning, I was telling you I was looking through my scrapbook of my beginning running, and on the marathon page, it was a two-page spread, I had written, lifetime goal achieved, and, that was back in 1996, and that, was, one marathon, and I it just struck me like, what if I would have stopped there? What if I would have thought that was the only thing that was the furthest I could go? I never would have imagined after finishing that marathon that someday I would be an Ironman, that I would have run 100 miles. So I mean, back then I thought that was my lifetime achievement. And it just goes to show you, I mean, you just don't put limits. You just don't put limits on yourself.
yeah, it's so true. And it's we forget what we thought was undue or unbelievable or something that like you mentioned the
Yeah.
goal back way back when, we're so consumed with what we're doing now and what we see on social media and all of that, that we're like, you forget at one point, I'll speak for myself. Like I couldn't imagine running 4 miles. Like I
Mhm.
was running 2 miles ish every once in a blue moon. And I remember I was like, I have to run a 10K. So like, I'm going to go make myself run 4 miles. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to run 4 miles, and it's now where I'm
Yeah.
like, a 4 miles is easily done every single day. And we don't think twice about it. It's that
Right.
crazy dynamic that we get into. And
Yeah.
it's crazy to think what goals we had and what we've overcome. And we continue to grow and, do hard things. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. So the last question I'll have for you, and I may know this, but what is essentially your like and not end all, because there's no end all, but what's a big, big goal that you have in ultra running that really scares the crap out of you and is something you definitely want to do?
Um, talking about those limiting beliefs, you know, I look at some of these longer things, 100-mile plus, and I'm beginning to wonder, could I do that distance, which, could be a 150 or, a 200 or whatever. And that scares me because I'm almost scared that I want to find out if I can, which if I track my history, that is the direction. Um, but I also know my limitations, I guess. And my family will remind me after I finish the 100, the Javelina 100. They have me on video saying I will never do this again. But you and I both know that we are liars. We are
Yeah.
liars. So I do want to do Sedona 125. Not
Very cool.
next year because I'm retiring and we're moving, and I just can't throw that in on top of all of it. So I am looking at Sedona 125 for 2028. And if my friends watch
Very
this,
cool.
I'm sorry, I lied. I am going to do it. But then there's that
Oh, that's
like,
hilarious.
well, if I do the 125, does that mean that a 200 is next? And it's like, where is my limit? When am I going to know, okay, that's enough now? Because I thought the 100 was enough. But now, of course, I'm
Yeah.
like, well, maybe the 125 will be enough.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, and you mentioned it, but like we are not responsible for what we say after 100 miles for at least 48 hours.
Oh,
Sometimes
that's
longer.
fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I myself after 100 was like, I'm never doing this again. Like I have to run 200 miles. That's not going to happen, and then we went and did it. So it
Yeah,
is, we're just not held responsible, but I love that you're looking for more. And, some people hands down, they're like 100's it. I don't want to do more. And there's nothing wrong with that. But
right.
I feel like a lot of us get into this and we'll do 100, maybe do another 100. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, there's Sedona. And then there's all these 200s out there. And, it's
Yeah.
endless sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the longer the distance favors, as long as, the vert isn't ridiculous, the longer stuff favors the slow and steady, which
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
that is me,
Is you.
It's just
Yeah.
how long can I be slow and steady?
Yeah. That is the next question if you think about it. Like, how
Yeah,
long can you be consistently steady? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh, that's awesome. Well, I'd love to hear that. And I will have your socials in the description so people can follow along, especially to catch your long run pictures. You post some awesome views, and I'm very
yeah.
jealous sitting here at Florida with the flatness here. But thank you, Kim, so much for being on the podcast, for sharing all the things. And I'm sure I'll have you on here again so we can talk and catch up and just talk some shit.
Great, I would love it.
Awesome.